As for the ceasefire, the president is accusing Iran of doing dishonorable things and by holding up a big part of their apparent agreement, which would be opening the Strait of Hormuz. The waterway remains effectively closed, with only a handful of ships being able to get through since the pause was announced. And back here at home, Trump is unloading on Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Candace Owens, and Alex Jones, all of whom have criticized him and the war. Calling them low IQ and stupid nut jobs and troublemakers, Trump is claiming that their views are the opposite of MAGA, or I wouldn't have won the presidential election in a landslide.
I don't know about you, but I am sick of this. I'm sick of it. Can't he just behave like a normal human? I mean, honestly, like the president, 3D chess, shut up. Shut up about that. You don't threaten to wipe out an entire civilization.
It is vile on every level. There will be nothing like it. Open the effing strait. How dare you speak that way on Easter morning to the country? Who do you think you are?
How do we 25th Amendment his ass? And if I was the Democrats, I'd stop poking Trump and messing with him. That only makes it worse. Like, you guys need to watch out. This isn't a guy acting like he's crazy. This is real.
Owens called Trump a genocidal lunatic, and she called for the 25th Amendment to be invoked. She responded to Trump's post tonight by saying it may be time to put up in a home. So President Trump is really struggling right now, trying pretty aggressively to shape the narrative. He appears to be talking to Iran through Truth Social. Not sure why that conversation can't happen in private. And then he is knocking down his one-time allies and trying to pretend as if he didn't talk to Tucker Carlson maybe about 6 weeks ago, if the New York Times is to be believed.
Well, listen, I think that montage was extremely fair. The president and the people around him have a tendency to, not apply a lot of discretion to the president's allies, regardless of who they are, what they say. And in this case, it has come back to bite them. That said, I don't know who their constituencies are. We know who the president's constituencies are. When it comes to this war, 80-90% of Republican voters, to say nothing of MAGA voters, self-described MAGA voters, support the war, whereas they do not. Who are they siding with? They're siding with the president. I think this ceasefire actually had some legitimacy to it. There was a value to seeing, well, Iran's position had softened. They were coming closer to us. Our position did not. We were conducting restrikes on targets we had already hit. It was time to get a breather and see if the diplomatic process could work. It hasn't worked. Over the course of the last 48 hours, this has become a unilateral ceasefire. If the president allows that to stand, it is a huge embarrassment for him, for the nation, and a sacrifice of American hegemony. That'll frustrate the podcasters. I don't think he cares.
But I mean, you seem to be kind of actually making a bit of their point, which is that where we are right now is not great. I mean, we have a ceasefire that only one party is adhering to, which is us, the United States. Meanwhile, the Strait of Hormuz is closed. Meanwhile, Israel is continuing strikes in Lebanon. Meanwhile, Arab allies are also experiencing strikes. So where does that really leave us in terms of real progress? And by the way, we have no idea what the points are, okay? They're 10 points. Maybe they exist, maybe they don't. We don't know what they are, but they do seem pretty far apart in terms of what the United States wants and what Iran is willing to offer.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it doesn't take an expert in contract law to know that both sides of an agreement need to have the same understanding of what the agreement is. And it doesn't seem like that's the case here, nor does the public. And so we're in this really interesting position where the win is some agreement with Iran that gives them way more leverage than they had at the beginning in terms of controlling the strait. And I think what the administration is learning now is that firepower doesn't always win when you're fighting a war that is based and turns on geography of a region and diplomacy and things that get solved without bombs, but actually with nuance and agreements and international relations. He's gutted a State Department that could help him with that. And I think he's just sort of disabled himself from being able to deal with it properly.
What is, do either of you think that there is a constituency or an explanation for why the Megyn Kellys and the Tucker Carlsons are willing to, if Noah is correct, sacrifice a portion of their audience with a message that maybe they don't want to hear?
I mean, maybe they took the president at his word when he campaigned against doing, wars in the Middle East. I mean, his entire criticism of George Bush was a failed war in the Middle East, and how it was a waste of American prestige, and how it was essentially, we sacrificed our soldiers for nothing, and we ended up losing American dignity and respect in the global order. That was, it's not what I said. It's what Donald Trump said to gain power in the Republican Party. And, I am not a fan of any of the people who are criticizing him, but I think maybe what united Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly and Alex Jones, people I vehemently disagree with, is that they actually took the president at his word. And they're just another group of people who've been suckered by this guy who lied to them to their face.
I don't think they've been suckered. I mean,
No.
my thing is that like Megyn's saying, I'm sick of this. Why can't he just act like a normal human? And I'm like, he can't act like a normal human. That's why so many of us worked against him being elected, because we knew that he would have an itchy trigger finger if you gave him a big red button to push. We knew that he was erratic. We knew that he would be not right for this role, which is why so many of us worked to not have him elected. So these people either didn't realize that he was crazy and dangerous, which most of us did, or they didn't care. And now all of a sudden they're like, oh, hold on, if he actually nukes 90 million people, there's going to be blowback on us, and this is crazy, and he can't do it. But we've been saying this for forever.
I know, but I think everybody who took him at his word made a mistake. I agree. I thought he would do terrible things like this. But I'm just saying, when you're asking, why would they possibly, take him on because it could hurt them? It's like let's imagine that they actually think he was like not lying to his face through everybody.
I can't get into their heads, but I do want to play this Tucker Carlson bite from 2024, December 2024, because it's about who he thinks Trump is. And I'm sure plenty of people at this table might disagree with his read on it.
I would say Trump voters, like Trump himself, are really forgiving people. They don't seek revenge. They seek some measure of justice because the human heart longs for justice, but they don't seek to grind their enemies under their feet. That's what the left does.
A fair amount of projection maybe in there. I mean, Tucker Carlson has done this game for years now, right? I mean, not only is this, I think, the fourth or fifth time he's proclaimed World War III was about to break out, but he tries to maintain this dialogue with the president, thinking he can have influence. And I actually think it's pretty admirable that the president is like, I have pretty hardcore beliefs on this. You talk about Iran, Donald Trump's been saying the same thing since the early 1980s. Like, he is a broken record when it comes to the threat that Iran posed. And I guess I'm just the panel's Pangloss here, because I think that things will work out fine. I trust the plan.
It's possible we could get out of this, but it's hard to see from here, because the ceasefire that we have is actually, we see that they have continual control. He's yelling, he's upset about it, but we are not bombing and they still have control.
They didn't gain that power. They've had that power. We're just seeing them willing to exercise it. And at any point,
They
and
were
this is the
never
point,
willing to exercise it before the war.
In 1987 and 1988, they shut down the strait, and we opened it up by force.
So when I was in seventh grade,
this
is a great
decision. Right now, what is happening?
Right
What
now,
is
we
happening?
have the dominant military in the region. We are able to call the shots on this, not on the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. We could do it if we so wanted to. It would take more blood and more treasure. But there is, yes, the ceasefire is fragile. There's a concept of a ceasefire. But the number one point is, okay, you got 10 points, you got 15 points. The gaslighting is the fact that the U.S. is losing, that we're somehow defeated.
We
in all
are
this.
losing. You can't say this is a complete victory.
We've spent $50
billion
to
with
Iranian
civilians.
The counterpoint to what you're saying from the Wall Street Journal op-ed is that declaring victory is premature. They say Trump has achieved some of his war aims, but the Iranian regime remains a threat in the Strait of Hormuz, and the job is far from finished, despite what he promised last week. The unfortunate truth is that Trump put himself in this position. His inconsistent rhetoric on the war, claims of victory amid threats of unleashing hell, and its end to Iran's civilization raised global fears and undermined support at home and abroad. And Trump hated this op-ed so much that he sent out a Truth Social post saying the journal is the worst and inaccurate. He said there's nothing premature about this victory. One of the reasons I think people believe that they're declaring victory is because literally they were declaring victory yesterday. And then the president late last night, he says, in the meantime, while they're waiting for the Strait of Hormuz to be opened, our great military is loading up and resting and looking forward actually to its next conquest. Is he just moving on
This is just
to
totally,
the next thing?
This is totally mad. These are like the rantings of a mentally ill person.
Yes.
And so the idea that you have soldiers and American troops who are just sort of waiting for him to make a decision on his whim. If you had like an elderly neighbor that was posting those things, you would probably do a welfare check on them and say, like, I hope you don't have access to weapons because you seem very unwell. And this is the commander in chief. And so I really think the absence, the silence of one part of Congress on what he's doing, I mean, it's catastrophic for the American public. I just can't believe it's happening.
Can you rationalize this?
It's extremely undesirable to have a president who is an unreliable narrator in a time of war. However, this isn't new. This is how the guy talks. He speaks in superlatives.
We didn't
he
say
says
it was
things,
new.
Yeah,
She's just arguing that it's not good.
But I'm going to cede every criticism of the president in this moment, but I would also contend that if you listen to what the brass is saying in the Pentagon, if you listen to Marco Rubio, even J.D. Vance.
You mean the brass that hasn't been fired? Because the brass that would tell us
Brad
the opposite would be
Cooper,
the ones that haven't
chairman of
been
the Joint
fired
Chiefs.
by the Pentagon.
actual
Like, it's all become ridiculous, right? We can no longer, at the end of this, we have lost the narrative.